15 years ago, when I started coming to these kind of things, I remember the odd person would say, oh, the creative documentary. That odd person definitely wasn't Tua or Mikal or these other wonderful people that are here, but the odd person would say, oh no, those days are over. No, you have to forget it. But of course the wonderful thing is that the creative documentary continues to grow, and there continues to be incredibly vibrant festivals and more audiences for whatever this thing is, the creative documentary. And I put my handbag on the stage as a clue for me to remember to say something. And that is that I think the creative documentary is a bit like a handbag. You gentlemen won't know what that is. But for us, the great thing about a handbag is we can put anything in it and maybe never find it again. But no, the idea is that it is a form that can do so many different things. It's a malleable form. It can be very well behaved in schools and can provide some nice educational lessons. It can be high art in an art gallery, or it can be almost like a fiction film in the cinema. It can pretend to do what television wants, and then it can go underground and make some little unexpected hit which somebody shoots with a camcorder and edits on iMovie, who knows nothing about filmmaking. So this is what the creative documentary is, and this is why we love it as a form, and this is why we keep travelling from snowy land to talk more about it, because we're still crazy enthusiasts about it. So I think we're almost like a group of Alcoholics Anonymous, except we're creative documentary likers anonymous, who keep meeting and saying, have you seen this one? No. Tell me, what have you heard of this one? No. And I think we need each other. And I think in the same way that audiences need these forums, because we need alternative visions of reality and alternative ways of reminding us what it is to be human in these very strange times. So, I'm just checking I've said what I meant to say. I'm going to show a number of different clips which are all highly subjective, not scientific at all, and if some of you have seen them, then all the better. Maybe you have more clever observations than I have about them. These are just little excerpts that have inspired me personally. I'm always looking for clues for filmmaking. And these films give me clues as a filmmaker, because I'm a teacher and a filmmaker, and they give me clues to question more about what the creative documentary can do. Because the most exciting thing I was going to say about it, which I absolutely meant to say, is that it's a form that is up for grabs. We don't know where it's going. And that's what's so exciting. Maybe some of the filmmakers that are here to pitch tomorrow can show us where it can go next. And I love that excitement about it as a form, that we're yet to discover more and more and more things about it, and hopefully not make it too well behaved. So, yes, the excerpts that I'm going to show come from all over the world. They're all excerpts of work which has travelled. So I think all of the excerpts will maybe make us share some question about what is it to make a film which is universal? What is it, the quality of something that allows it to transcend just its own local audience, allows it to travel, allows it to be seen 10 years later, and for many people to talk about. If it's okay, we'll show the first excerpt. I'll just introduce it and then say go, but I'll just introduce it. The first excerpt is by a Norwegian filmmaker. I was going to call her young, but I realised that's because I'm older that I call people like that young. She's actually not that young, she's probably in her 40s. But she's a very inspiring filmmaker who some of you may know. She's called Margaret Olin. And she's just made her first fiction, which is called The Angel, and I understand is Norway's submission for the Oscars. And I think she's probably typical of quite a lot of what I call the younger generation of filmmakers, in that she straddles fiction and documentary. But of course that has been happening for a long time. Ultimately it is just filmmaking. Her first film, which became quite well known, was called The House of Angels. and was about an old folks' home in Norway. And she made it in such a way, with such compassion and such an incredibly enlightening way of looking at the reality round about her, that it became a huge hit in Norwegian cinema. It was one of the top 10 films that year amongst fiction and documentary. But the next film, which we're going to see a bit of, which became a big, big hit and caused a bit of a sensation, was called My Body. Now, she was a very average woman with an average kind of shape, not like a beautiful model, and decided that she would make a film looking at her very ordinary body and looking at her attitude to her very ordinary body. And the film caused quite a ripple in all kinds of different circles, because basically she was just really speaking from a very honest perspective about what it was to grow up with different messages about what your body was. So you'll be disappointed to hear maybe that there is no extreme nudity coming up, but there are scenes showing ankles, feet, and other parts of the body, and we hear a bit about her attitude. I wanted just to tell you one other thing about it before we see it, which is that when it was made, Cosmopolitan, the magazine, apparently asked her to do an interview. And she said, I will do an interview, but only if you allow me to appear in the cover naked, with her very ordinary body. And Cosmopolitan refused. So I think the film is a very interesting film because I think it's a deeply political film, but it's also a deeply personal film. So maybe if we could just see a wee bit of My Body. We, that means small.
Nu ska du lena dig tillbaka, sänka skuldrarna dina och pusta med magen.
Take a deep breath.
Det är ingen som värderar dig nu.
You must not be so self-protective.
Rolig in och ut.
Make lower your shoulders. It's not so dangerous to breathe.
Men du måste rata till ögonen dina, för du är på kino. Du är på kino för att vakna. Du ska få en historia jag aldrig trodde skulle fortælle. Fordi det på sätt och vis är hemligheten.
Ultimately, the film is about, she had anorexia. But it's told in this incredibly creative way that pulls us all in. I want you to wake up, she says at the beginning. And I think, certainly I think many women can identify with it, but I'm sure many men also find it, that it really speaks very directly to people. So out of every excerpt that I'm showing, I thought I would tell you what lessons I got from them for my own filmmaking and for just thinking about what is it about making work to make it universal. But maybe if any of you have anything to say, please feel free. This is just a discussion as much as anything. So what I get from her work when I look at it is find what form is right for what you want to say. Don't make something to fit in with a form that you think you have to use. I think what's so inspiring about that film is that you would say it was a language that she totally discovered herself. A language which is so intimate and close that you almost feel it could be just a friend speaking to a friend. So I suppose that's another thing that for me is a lesson when I watch her films. Not to make films for some imaginary audience of people out there that might like it, some marketing group out there, but to make films which just really talk very directly, to make films that your best friend might like. So that's the other thing. And maybe the other thing just to say is, just because you make a serious subject, it doesn't mean it has to be serious. It can still be playful. And actually maybe it can draw us in all the more by being like that. And maybe it can actually make us ask more questions by being with that. She's actually a filmmaker who's very motivated by social issues, but they're hidden. They're hidden in what is still incredibly entertaining, but also quite poetic, actually, I think, her filmmaking.